días de nuevo. Voy a pedirle al presidente Greenspon y a Kerry Kennedy, recipiente del Premio Chapultepec, que por favor se acerquen al estrado. Michael and Kerry, please come up. So we just start the ceremony. Thank you. Good morning. I hope you all have recovered from last night. I need my glasses. Today is a special day in commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the Chapultepec Declaration. We present the most notable award of our institution, through which we recognize individuals or institutions that defend, promote, and uphold the principles of this declaration. I am pleased to present the 2023 Chapultepec Grand Prize to Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights and its leader, Kerry Kennedy, for their outstanding support and work on behalf of victims of human rights violations, and in that context, for their defense of journalists who are victims of violence. We've been observing the fundamental work of the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights for years. We've found in this group and its legal team, led by lawyer Angelita Bayans, the expert support to successfully prosecute before the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights the case of Nelson Stravolal, and make positive progress in cases involving Alfredo Jimenez Mota from Mexico and Guillermo Cano from Colombia. This joint work allows victims to be economically and morally compensated by states and pushes governments to create mechanisms to protect journalists. I do not doubt that this work between Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights and IAPA has made each organization more relevant. We are honored to present you and your organization with the prestigious Chapultepec Grand Prize. This award is a testament to the unwavering dedication and extraordinary contributions of Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights to advancing human rights and social justice worldwide. The Chapultepec Grand Prize we award today underscores the importance of your work and inspires all of us in pursuit of a fairer and more compassionate world. Thank you very much.
Buenos días. I am so honored to join you today, but I really feel like I shouldn't be up here. Every member of this audience should be up here, especially Ricardo Trotti, who's been such an amazing partner and such a courageous man. And let me introduce to you the winner of the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Award here, Santiago and Malu, and the greatest hero of rural Mexico. Would you guys please stand? Yeah. So I'm honored to join you today as partners in the quest to protect press freedom. The Inter-American Press Association is on the front lines everywhere in this hemisphere every day, protecting the right to criticize governments without fear of reprisal. On behalf of my colleagues, especially the great lawyer and visionary and hero of human rights, Angelita Bayans, we are proud to join you in this quest for free expression. is why we are so eager to join you on our first case together, which IAPA has been litigating since 2002. We joined as co-counsel in 2015. Nelson Carvajal was a journalist and regional radio station director in the town of Pilitaco, Colombia. He brought corruption to light committed by local government and businessmen. Despite multiple threats to his life, he continued to probe. In 1998, a hitman shot and killed Nelson before riding off on a motorcycle. But the attempts to silence him did not stop there. When police and prosecutors failed to investigate the crime, his family members took up the case. One by one, over the course of decades, they too were threatened with death and forced into exile. Thanks to the dogged determination of IAPA, for the first time in the history of Latin America, a state was held accountable for the failing to protect the life and integrity of a journalist and for failing to protect freedom of expression. That's what you did. Think about that. The first time in the history of this region when so many journalists have been killed and so many journalists operate every day with death threats. And you're the first to hold them accountable. Congratulations. This case was historic, and the judgment of the court was victory for freedom of expression and the fight against impunity for violence against journalists in the Americas. The court went further and found that Colombia had failed not only Carvajal, but it also failed to investigate and hold accountable the perpetrators. The ruling represented an advance in the effective guarantee of the right to free expression in the Americas by recognizing the scale and extent of violence against the press and widespread impunity in these attacks. It also developed criteria to guide the investigation, prosecution, and punishment of homicides against journalists in general. Thanks to this landmark judgment, the investigation against the suspected mastermind of Carvajal's murder was reopened in 2022, something that seemed impossible before that. We gathered in Cartagena during IAPA's biannual meeting in March 2019 for the first public act of recognition of international responsibility by the government of Colombia in Carvajal's case. It was the first time in 20 years that the 18 members of the Carvajal family had been able to gather since Nelson's death. Thanks to their own advocacy and that of the IAPA, they received in front of an audience of journalists, all of you, an apology for the suffering they endured from the president of Colombia himself. That historic achievement was only possible thanks to the determination and the persistence of IAPA. I want to highlight in particular the extraordinary commitment of Ricardo Troy, who I want to thank for his trust and camaraderie for years and years and years. Thank you, Ricardo. Today, we at RFK Human Rights are partnering with IAPA and several other cases. Investigative journalist Alfredo Jimenez Mota spent his career uncovering crimes committed by drug traffickers and cartel operators in the state of Sonora. In April 2005, he was working on a new article for El Imparcial. He and a colleague planned to meet after Alfredo interviewed an unnamed source. That's when Alfredo was disappeared. Thanks IAP's advocacy, this was the first case in the history of Mexico to reach the inter-American system on the issue of the disappearance of journalists in this country. Along with the IAPA and the Jimenez Mota family, we reached an agreement with the Mexican government. The government agreed to make reparations to the family and to adopt concrete measures to investigate the circumstances around Alfredo's disappearance. The state recognized its responsibility for failing Alfredo and his family and for violating the most fundamental rights, including the right to access to justice. On December 8, 2021, in a beautiful ceremony in Sonora, Mexico officially acknowledged responsibility and apologized to Alfredo's family. Finally, just think about that just for a moment. How many disappearances have there been in this country? How many families never have the satisfaction of the state saying, "We're sorry, we take responsibility." That's what happened in this case, and that's why this case is so important, and that's because of you. Finally, we continue working together with the IAPA and with the Foundation for Freedom of the Press in Colombia to achieve justice for the murder of freedom of the press icon Guillermo Cano. Cano investigated the drug cartels for El Espectador. In retaliation, he was brutally murdered by the hitmen linked to Pablo Escobar's powerful Medellin cartel. His case was never fully investigated. No perpetrators were brought to justice. Then, one by one, his colleagues were targeted. The paper's headquarters were attacked. The message was clear: don't expose our injustice. But IAPA is relentless in the pursuit of justice. No one knows better that if we let impunity win, the cycle of violence will not stop, and those that seek to silence the critical work of the media will go on. These cases and the work of IAP are particularly important on the 30th anniversary of the Chapultepec Declaration. Since the adoption of the Declaration in 1994, the agreement has been a fundamental tool for promoting freedom of expression in the region and fostering a dialogue between different sectors of society. Its influence and strength have been permeated the inter-American human rights system by inspiring the creation of the 2001 Declaration of Principles on Freedom of Expression of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. These principles were adopted by more than 60 heads of state. Why do we work on freedom of expression as an organization? We've made the protection of freedom of expression and of the press, and more broadly its civic space, a cornerstone of our work at Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights. By holding governments accountable for their international human rights obligations on these issues, we can contribute to the overall enjoyment of all fundamental rights. Without the valiant work of journalists, we know too well there is no true democracy. And when democratic values are not present in a country, we see serious abuses happening in the dark. Freedom of expression is vital right of importance for the defense of other rights. It is much more difficult to steal, torture, disappear, and discriminate when there is true freedom of expression, and when those who attempt to repress free expression are held accountable. I'd like to close with these words from my father, Robert F. Kennedy. He said, "The first element of individual liberty is the freedom of speech. The right to express and communicate ideas, to set oneself apart from the dumb beasts of field and forest, the right to recall governments to their duties and obligations. Above all, the right to affirm one's membership and allegiance to the body politic, to society, to the people with whom we share our land, our heritage and our children's future. Hand in hand with freedom of speech goes the power to be heard, to share in the decisions of government which shapes people's lives. Everything that makes life worthwhile, family, work, education, a place to rear one's children, and a place to rest one's head. All this depends on the decisions of government. All this can be swept away by a government which does not heed the demands of its people, and I mean all its people. Therefore, the essential humanity of all of us can be protected and preserved only where the government must answer not just to the wealthy, not just to those of a particular religion, not just those of a particular race, but to all the people. On behalf of Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights, I thank all the members of IAP for assuring government answers not just to the wealthy and powerful, but to all its people. Gracias.
Hola a todos, mi nombre es Hernández, muy buenos días, para mí es un placer estar con ustedes. Muchas felicidades por este valioso reconocimiento del Premio Chapultepec. Ahora los vamos a invitar a que no se vayan de esta asamblea sin probar el simulador de la moto itálica Racing y también sin tener la experiencia inmersiva sobre la caída de México Tenochtitlan, patrocinada por Banco Azteca y Arte y Cultura del Centro Benjamín Salinas Pliego. Vamos a tomarnos 30 minutos de receso, cortesía del diario AZ, y nos vemos 11:30 de la mañana. Gracias.